You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
A kiss, as defined by Dan Webster, is something pleasing, a caress, a gentle touch. But there's another kiss that isn't in Webster's.
Hey world, we're Kiss!
Some critics say they don't make music, they just make noise.
Yeah, Kiss sucks!
Kiss implies the extreme in the theatrics on stage, utilizing fire and smoke and bizarre costumes, and the ever-consistent, constant concealment of their true identities.
Speaking of which, Kiss is going to have its own comic book soon.
Take Kiss with you. It's fun. Show your friends and be the first. Now.
Oh my God, no time to turn!
And welcome once again to No Time to Turn, a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Nerds.
I'm Russ, and as always, I'm with Cap and Alex from the Something Good Network.
Yo. Hey, look at that. For a second, I was like, did he no, that was actually right. I was so used to you saying the, look at you.
All right, and we are tracking the history of Kiss, album by album, year by year, or I guess in this case, cycle by cycle at this point.
Right.
We are going into the revenge era, which is for a lot of Kiss fans. This was a big time. They hold this in high regard. So we're going to kind of examine what was going on in the history of the band going into this and kind of coming out at the same time. Of course, we're not experts, but we have our opinions. I lived through this.
Right.
I have very clear memories of this time, and I had already kind of turned the corner on this. So I've never actually listened to this album all the way through until preparation for this show.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I was already kind of off in my own orbit by this point. Kiss had already just lost me.
What had captured your attention by that point?
Oh, I was into my punk rock thing.
Got it. Right.
I was everything that this represents everything that I hate about music to this day.
Well, this is kind of the time period where the
that's
tide
Russ's
is turning.
opinion already.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely.
But a lot of what I like about music is in this too, and that's what's kind of the weird dichotomy here that's going on.
Yeah.
So, but we got to kind of coming out of the hot in the shade thing. For some reason, I can't find any information on this. Kiss got a new record deal. We talked about that in the last episode, and I think it was it 7 albums over 10 years, which is a really excellent deal for them to get. I don't know why they would have gotten that, given that they had failed to meet expectations with anything they had delivered up to that point. I can't see any other record label offering them a deal. And obviously, we talked about in the previous episode, they were setting themselves up to go their separate ways. I mean, whether they acknowledge it publicly or not, it was definitely in the back of their minds. I mean, they're all off. They were all pursuing other interests at that time.
And like I said, for me, the one that really kind of teed it off for me was for the fact that Bruce was trying to start producing bands.
Yeah, well,
it's like, of all people, Bruce
already
is
had a career before he was ever in Kiss.
Exactly. So for the fact that like around that point is when he did start making the next plans for a move, it's like, that is interesting.
So, the Hot in the Shade record was clearly just product, stopgap material to fill the void. It was demos they polished up.
Yeah.
I don't think they had any illusions, I don't know what the correct word is, towards that album being a quote-unquote successful album. But they had renewed the deal. They needed material. They needed it quick. And so what we got was Hot in the Shade.
Yes.
But that's just, and that's one of the unfortunate truths about what this band has done. I mean, that's just product. They really didn't put a lot into that, and it shows. I mean, we talked about that in the previous episode. If you missed it, stop what you're doing, go back, listen to the other one.
Because this one didn't make as much sense.
Yeah. But here's an interesting factoid that I had forgotten about, and I can remember this being in the trades.
Oh.
Back in the day. It's alleged that at some point in either late 89 or early 90, there was some sort of discussion about a possible reunion tour with full makeup and costume. Apparently Ace claims he was approached.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was floated. It was going to be with Eric Carr still retained instead of Peter Criss, which is interesting.
That is
There's
interesting.
a lot to even be unpacked there if you wanted to, but Ace's counter was, instead of a tour, they should do 2 shows at Madison Square Garden, 2 shows at the Forum in LA, film everything, home video release, which at the time home video was a burgeon. It was a thing.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of commercial viability in that. And this was either before or in the wake of Ace being approached to open the Hot in the Shade tour. But that would have teed the ball. Had he had done that and gone out, the idea was Ace would open and then do the encore, and he felt like that was playing second fiddle. But to me, that was clearly they were teeing the ball for something like that.
That's them clearly extending the olive branch.
And it's like, well, let's, and see how, kind of tease it and then go from there. Whether or not this is true, it doesn't matter. Even if it's not true, it just shows that the ghosts are being stirred.
And again, at the same time period, Rise to It music video where they test the waters with the makeup. So there's a lot of kind of like throwing out the and also maybe pure speculation, but we also did cover and say that there wasn't as big of a swell of interest with Gene and Paul putting their makeup on as they were kind of expecting or hoping. Yeah. Maybe that kind of extinguished even that fire.
That's true. But it's interesting to note
speculation.
That you're finally seeing a real rise to that nostalgia for the makeup era to point. In August of 1990, CZ Records, I think out of Seattle, if I'm right, might be California, I don't know. But it was one of the underground indie labels, releases a tribute album entitled Hard to Believe. A Kiss tribute album, and it features underground punk bands covering the classic Kiss material.
Yeah, including what artists? I haven't found this.
The Melvins, Nirvana. It's one of the only recordings Nirvana did as a 4-piece with Jason Everman. They do You Love Me?
And it's
basically a spoof, yeah. But the Melvins do a pretty much note for note God of Thunder, and then they drop the Kiss Alive drum solo in the middle of it.
That's
which
awesome.
I think is Dale Crover playing drums.
Well, Melvins have actually done a lot of Kiss references.
They're big Kiss fans. Big group from Australia called the Hard-Ons are on it.
I love it.
That is a good one.
Coffin Break, which was a band out of I think Seattle. They were, the bands that had their, little underground thing going. And it was, and it was sort of an anomalous thing. It was like, wait, what? And it was self-referential in that they called it Hard to Believe.
Yeah. But and also around that same time, you really weren't seeing a lot of tribute things yet. You weren't seeing tribute albums.
This was very new to the game kind of thing. They were way ahead of the curve. I mean, punk bands usually are ahead of the curve. And it's like I always say, the underground's just like real earth. It's like you've got all this underground movement that eventually erupts to the surface and becomes...
Because actually thinking about... Well, no, never mind. Point invalid. Go on.
Anyway, I guess it's also worthy to note that of the original release, only one of the 15 tracks dates from the post-makeup era. So, but I think that goes to show, I mean, this is the influence that the band had, and they're probably completely unaware that they had that influence. It's the original band that holds this influence. It's not, obviously, the 80s thing.
No.
But also interesting to note that during the Hot in the Shade tour, Polygram hired some sort of independent research firm to survey Kiss fans at Kiss concerts.
All right.
I didn't see this. I went to that. That was the last time I saw them without, on their sans makeup, whatever era. But the idea is to figure out what the fans like and don't like about the band. Like, is this better music through science? I don't know.
I was like, did they get any particular answers that stirred some pots?
The answer is they are no longer seen as a heavy rock band.
Well,
they're seen as a balladeer band for some reason. I mean,
Crazy Nights was super clean and glossy.
The Let's Put the X in Sex, their big hit for this that even gave them the ability to tour with Hot in the Shade was Forever.
The ballad, yeah.
But they're no longer seen as a heavy rock band. 2 Point. That year, Cher records and releases a cover version of World Without Heroes. Wasn't a hit, but it's interesting that it occurred.
Yeah.
And actually, one other thing that I'm very surprised we didn't mention, and I had it in my notes, I just completely overlooked it and didn't mention it on the show, but and I think this isn't even his first tour. I think he started on the Asylum tour, But on keyboards, we had Gary Corbett.
Yeah, he's been involved all through the 80s off and on. It's like when they need him, they have him, and when they don't, they're like, you can go home now.
And he was also involved with Paul's solo shows.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of that together I found pretty interesting.
Well, he's not going to be involved with the Revenge era.
No, he is not. No keyboards on the Revenge era.
There is keyboard player on the Revenge tour. His name is Derek Sherinian. I think it's how you pronounce it. He is now in Dream Theater.
Dream Theater, and I know him from like the Black Country Communion records with Joe Bonamassa. They were pretty good.
Oh, okay. Isn't that with
Glenn Hughes?
Glenn Hughes. I always liked the Glenn Hughes era of Deep Purple.
Me too.
I'm very partial to that. Anyway. But this isn't a Deep Purple part.
No. What if?
I wonder if there is.
In early 1991, after dealing with prolonged flu-like symptoms, Eric Carr was diagnosed with, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, pericarditis.
That sounds about right.
Is it parasitis or pericarditis? I don't know. I should have looked this up before I did this.
We're not doctors.
I've heard both pronunciations.
Well, it's fluid around the heart. So he's diagnosed with fluid around the heart. Mm-hmm. And the doctor gave him a sponge and said, no. Boom. I'm here all night. All right. So he's diagnosed with fluid around the heart. And after they clear the fluid around the heart, this is when they discovered he has a tumor in his right atrium. And it proves to be a cancerous tumor. And on April 8th, he has surgery to remove the tumor. And in this interim, while he is recovering, the group have been contracted to provide a track for the soundtrack of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, dude.
Was it not a bogus? I thought it was Bogus Journey.
I don't know.
It was the second one.
Adventure. Was it the second one?
Yeah.
I've never watched those movies. I have never had the slightest interest in it.
I never saw Bogus Journey, but part one's a classic.
Was it really Bogus Journey?
The sequel was, yep.
Christ.
Yeah, so this was a
this wasn't even the first one. This is the shitty sequel. Mother. Anyway. But here's what's interesting. They don't choose this song. It is chosen for them by Interscope Records. I don't find who. There was somebody in the higher ups at Interscope that was a Kiss fan apparently, and specifically requested that they do this.
Mm-hmm. So Gene and Paul just rewrote the lyrics a little bit, retweaked the song, and then
were they asked to rewrite the song, or did they just do it on their own accord?
From what I was able to kind of hear from like both Gene and Paul's perspective, that like they of course were told to do it, and that they just kind of took it upon themselves to make it a Kiss song.
Well, the original lyrics are kind of wackadoo.
Yeah.
It's kind of post-hippie kind of thing. It was originally recorded by the band Argent.
Yeah.
I first heard the song when I was about 15, and there was a Christian rock band called Petra that covered it. And my mom was super religious, and I was at church Sunday. We were old school Southern Baptist. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We were there.
Woo!
And for my entire teenage years. And so I was exposed to this Christian rock stuff. And there was a guy that had that record from when he was a kid. He was like a Sunday school teacher or something. Because this was recorded in this. They recorded it twice. There's an 80s version too. But whatever. This band Petra. And that's the version that I knew.
Right.
My memory of it was actually a pretty, that 70s version was actually a pretty good, I mean, it is what it is. You know the song. It's not much different. But I mean, that's a distorted memory from when I was 15. I'm 50 now. So that's 35 years ago. Whatever. I don't, it's odd. The otter thing here, is that right? Otter as opposed to beaver. There's a decision made to reunite with Bob Ezrin.
Yep. Yes.
And I can find no information as to whose idea it was to reunite with Bob Ezrin. Did anybody find this?
It seemed to just kind of be an ambiguous, like it was time. We just thought
it was time to try again.
Yeah.
It's it's never just a thing. They go. There was something that drove them to that point.
I mean, but every reference piece I've seen is, and they pull Bob Ezrin back into the frame. Like, I think Paul said the most on it, but even that was like maybe a couple sentences. It was something to the effect of Bob was ready to try again with the Kiss record. We weren't sure yet, so
it almost sounds like sometimes like they were like they want to be like smug about it, like, oh, we thought we'd throw Bob, poor old Bob a bone.
So we tried it with just one song. We clicked and decided, and he wanted to. I think it was he wanted to repair his reputation because of the Elder.
Exactly, they were still kind of
be that simple. I mean, they might have been looking, okay, well, we've got this new record deal. We need to kind of, they're always looking for a Svengali. Mm-hmm. They tried this with Crazy Nights. They waited 2 years to get Ron Nevison. It didn't work for him. I don't know, but that's the curiosity here. It's like, why would they go back to Bob Ezrin? Now let's look at what Bob Ezrin's done in the interim since he had last worked with Kiss. Perhaps his most successful recording production, I guess you would say, is the so-called reunion album of Pink Floyd, A Momentary Lapse of Reason. I say so-called because Roger Waters wasn't involved, and Pink Floyd nerds would probably agree with me. It's not The Wall either. So, well, no, but interesting side story to that. I can remember when that came out, reading a article about it, how apparently they recorded that album twice.
Yeah, I've read about that
and
too.
His kids, and when he played it for his kids, Bob Ezrin, and they were like, "Yeah, this is good, but it doesn't sound like Pink Floyd." And it was just like, stop, go back, do it all over, because they didn't have Roger Waters there, and they acknowledged, well, it would have been a lot easier had Roger been there. But anyway,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I just have no use for any Pink Floyd post Roger Waters.
I forget the movie maker or the director rather, but there's a director that does very similar. He doesn't allow studios to mess with his movies in the slightest. He doesn't allow for any sort of outside input, but he'll take the film to like a random screener in like what would be like a Gaffney, South Carolina.
Oh, and do an audience preview.
Preview there. And then take those input and immediately make changes.
That's not uncommon. They do that. And I don't doubt that there's probably a certain level that was done with this to some degree with music in the day. I don't know. The curiosity to me here is I was looking at his credits, and the one that popped out was this band Bonham, Jason Bonham's dundering heavy metal band. He had been in a band called Air Ace, which was more like a prog kind of a thing.
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, because it's not good.
None of it's spectacular. Not even the Bonham stuff.
Bonham was not good though. That's the thing. And what is very noticeable about this stuff he did with Bonham, that even at the time I'm like, this doesn't sound like a Bob Ezrin record. Like, Bob Ezrin had a production style. That's he was very, very pronounced, unique style. I mean, he is in rarefied air, and I keep coming back to, and I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes and probably laugh and chuckle under their breath, but I put him at the kind of a level of like a Phil Spector. He was the Phil Spector of the 70s. He did, orchestrations. He had, everything and the kitchen sink.
I think that's entirely valid.
You listen to $1 Billion Babies, even on just Hello Hooray on the coda section at the end, you hear the cannons underneath it. Who does this stuff? Bob Ezrin.
In the 80s, the only thing I can think of note that kind of, had you can hear his fingerprints on is that Hanoi Rocks record, Two Steps from the Move.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot all about I forgot he did that. I don't know how I missed that on the credits. But at some point he's made this shift to a more simplified, very direct approach that kind of eschews the signature.
And that's kind of how the Hanoi one was, even though the arrangements are all over the place.
Well, it's a good point, because we're going to get to that here shortly. But I don't know if this is just a reaction to, like a director that has done, where, like Francis Ford Coppola was famous for going way over budget, and to a point where he tried to form his own film company, really. And he had a studio, and he went completely bankrupt doing it. So, movie companies came in and were like, all right, enough with these director personal projects, we're going to make product that's going to make money. So I think it's the same thing. This might be in the wake of, like, Fleetwood Mac had made the album Tusk, which was a triple album, wasn't it, on vinyl? I can't remember.
I could not tell you.
But, like, Fleetwood Mac had Tusk, and Boston had Don't Look Back, and had taken years to make it. It took 2 years to make it. Pink Floyd, The Wall, these big, excessive, overwrought, very expensive records. And I think the record companies had came in and said, okay, we're cutting the purse strings here. You're going to do quick, fast, cheap, and easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think he needed to prove that he could do cheap, fast, quick, and easy. And that's why he's doing these kind of like, what I'd call B-rate bands, but whatever. The initial sessions on this, I guess Eric Carr tried to play drums. From the information I got, he came in and they were like, let's see what you can do. And they were like, nope.
I didn't hear anything on that.
His take was, I'm good, I can do it. And their take was, it wasn't there.
I didn't run across that one. And I found that interesting because we have kind of been a little critical on Paul for kind of smacking people down, within his retelling of things. And not to jump too far ahead, but he was discussing, what is soon to happen. And he said that he felt like he was protecting Eric, saying, you need to heal, you need to get better. Singer is only going to be in the band for a little bit. He said he didn't realize that
was the original plan, and
playing drums and playing in Kiss was part of his lifeline. And Paul even admits, he goes, I don't see why I didn't see that, because Kiss was that for me too.
Right.
So again,
I think he's sincere with that. I don't doubt that narrative is not a bullshit narrative to me.
So
I think they really
that. He was saying that he completely cut it off and said, no, you're not gonna play. So that's what made me question him even trying in the first place.
The only thing that only gives me pause to say that isn't that may still be a bullshit narrative is just the fact that those two in particular did not get along at that point for whatever reason. But we weren't, obviously I wasn't there. We can only speculate.
Yeah.
But it's moot because actually, you know what? According to the information I've got, let's see here. In May, it is determined that the cancer in Eric's heart has spread to his lungs. And in early July, he begins, I think it's June, I might have that wrong. But anyway, he begins chemotherapy at the Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute in New York, while the band begins pre-production of the next album in Los Angeles without him.
But the band's paying for all his medical bills and everything.
As far as I understand, that is correct. There's people that, there's a lot of rumor and speculation and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into that because I don't know, and I didn't feel like I really wanted to dig out those details because it's not really pertinent to what the big picture here is.
And I will say, if folks are interested, there are plenty of interviews with people from the family, that YouTube, in writing, everything. If you're interested in seeing it, it's well documented.
Yeah. After all through this podcast, we have purposefully tried to avoid a lot of the backbiting and infighting and personal drama.
This is just one, unfortunately, we kind of have to touch slightly, but we're still not going to get into it.
Right.
This is here's where I'm kind of, again, this is the big question mark on the narrative. Like I said, I kind of feel that that's sincere, but certain things happen here that I didn't know about until I did the research for this program. Eric Carr insists that he appears in the video for God Gave Rock and Roll to You. And the video was filmed in Los Angeles on July 27th and 28th of 91. It was directed by Mark Rezika. Is that how you pronounce his name? Rezika? He had directed the Rise to It video.
Okay.
And he had done videos for like Whitesnake, Winger, Joan Jett, Cinderella. Cinderella, of course, also managed by Larry Mazer, who is now managing Kiss. Apparently, while he was in LA, the band had resolved to use this opportunity to formally and legally dismiss him from Kiss.
Yep.
And he came in so gung-ho and so raring to go that they changed their minds.
Damn. And apparently he was there till 3 a.m. playing his ass off during the shoot.
And I think he also made effort to prove that he could record this album again, and same process. They were like, no.
Yeah.
Go home, get better.
Yeah.
So Eric Singer is again contracted to take Eric Carr's place. I got to be careful with the pronouns here. Eric Singer, Eric Carr.
We'll just go by Singer and Carr now.
And the understanding is that it is temporary, that he will play and as a substitute until,
for the record,
Eric Carr can,
because they had not even discussed anything about tour. This is strictly for recording.
And of course, like you said, Eric is left feeling defeated and abandoned. True or not, you can understand. And 100%. Paul concedes that, he probably didn't handle it right.
Yeah.
I think it's very kind of big of them, given their whole, pretense.
Yeah. And even though it was kind of a sticky thing, that's why I even still wanted to mention that. I think it's
big that they acknowledge that they probably didn't handle this well. And let's see here. On September 5th, Eric Carr is in attendance at the MTV, easy for me to say, the MTV Music Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's going to make a lot of hash out of that.
We see you, Barry.
This proves to be his last public appearance. Because on September 16th, according to the dates I have, he suffers an aneurysm, and it leaves him partially paralyzed. And several weeks later, he suffers a second one, a brain hemorrhage, of which he loses consciousness, and he never regains consciousness.
And supposedly, during all this time, the band is unaware.
Oh, I did not know that.
From multiple accounts, they got no information about this.
Wow, that's
because they knew he was still in recovery phase when they did the MTV show.
Right.
So they knew he was still recovering. He still needed downtime.
But the hemorrhages, they weren't aware that he had lost consciousness.
No, they got one phone call like a couple days later, but then after that, and this is in their books, and again, it's a touchy subject, but it still kind of colors an interesting narrative. They were continuing to try to reach out to the family, and no one was answering the phone.
Well, it all proves moot. Eric Carr dies on November 24th, 1991, at the age of 41. His death receives little notice, as Queen's Freddie Mercury dies on the very same day. So even in the end, he's playing second fiddle to a bigger name. He had a very brief passing mention on MTV News at the closing of their MTV News segment. I don't think it made Rolling Stone or anything. I think if I remember reading somewhere, Gene Simmons wrote a nasty, y'all should have acknowledged this note. And I think they published like a paragraph of it.
Yeah.
Rolling Stone not doing their job. Come on.
Well, I mean, I think it actually took until
this
recent decade. Like I think in the 2010s before they finally got on like the cover of Rolling Stone or some shit. Like they've always had a problem with that publication.
No, I've been reading all kinds of nasty things about Rolling Stone lately.
Well, I mean, it's valid.
Yeah,
it's a valid.
But that's
argument.
a whole other podcast.
Yeah. Kiss always did better with magazines like Cream in the 70s, and then in the 80s it was Hit Parade. Well, Hit Parader was kind of a bullshit magazine that compiled their interviews out of
was it
press
Metal
material.
Something?
There was Metal Edge.
They got some on that.
These heavy metal magazines, they're definitely targeted to teenage boys, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it was girls had Super Teen and 16 and Tiger Beat, and boys had Metal Edge and Rip.
Oh yeah,
and Circus was kind of like the
I thought that was more 70s. I thought they had kind of rolled in.
Circus was popular in the 80s too.
Okay.
Kiss formally announced Eric Singer as their new drummer on November 30th. So that's how many days after the death of Eric Carr? If that's the 24th, so you're talking about what, a week later? Pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, they had no choice, I guess.
Yeah,
they were already working together.
What was this, 91?
Yeah. But, the album was just still being recorded. I think they could have waited. I would have, if I were in charge, and this may have been a managerial decision, I don't know. You could point the blame anywhere. But if I were their manager, I would have been like, let's wait until after the holidays.
Yeah.
Let's get to the new year. And then we'll address it publicly.
Because you know what? That could have actually, if we want to look at it from the manager's standpoint, that could have built up a lot of hype for Revenge. Here's our brand new drummer. Then a couple weeks later, here's the new album coming out soon and a single.
They should have circled the wagons in this case, mourn the loss or not, if that is whatever they were feeling, however they were feeling, let them deal with it their way. But as far as public perception, no news is no news.
Yeah.
So, so they finished this album with Eric Singer. And do you want to just go ahead and hit this track by track?
Let's
the album is called Revenge.
And believe it or not, the day of us recording this is the 30th anniversary of this album's release.
It is to this very day. We are recording this on May the 19th. And we did none of us realized, and as we were preparing for this show, this was not planned at all.
Nope. This was like the day of.
No clue. We couldn't have planned this if we had tried.
Nope. I had seen like one or two posts, and it still didn't even because I knew this month was the 30th anniversary. I'd seen a few posts about it already. So it's like when I was scrolling my feed this morning, I saw Kiss Online posting about it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, they're just finally getting on the hype train. Cap sent the thing today going 30 years today in our group chat. And I was like, oh, shit.
That's so weird. That's so weird. I don't feel old.
No. Well, actually, real quick before we go into our track by track, I feel that it's really important to also mention that when they go into the studio in December of 91 to do all this, they also reach back out to Vinnie Vincent.
That's right. We should address that before we get into this. I mean, that's curious. They do. It seems like I read they bumped into him by happenstance somewhere, and
it was just one of those hey situations.
So how many co-writes does he get on this? Because I know Bob Ezrin winds up with a half dozen co-writes on this because Bob Ezrin always has co-writes. We talked about this on the previous records where he worked with them. Bob Ezrin always gets co-writes because he's going to get that publishing money too.
Yeah.
I see 3 right off.
That's what I see too.
Well, let's do track by track and we'll address it because I've got that in the notes for each song here. So right out of the chute, they hit with this song Unholy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people feel like this was a really strong comeback for, a return to form.
Not only for Kiss, but for Gene Simmons in particular.
This really seems to come out of left field given the direction that the band had taken with all the pop-y kind of, pretty boy Paul Stanley shit. It's a strong track to a point. But once you acknowledge who it is and what they've done, it feels a little false and forced to me. At the time when it came out, I just was like, okay.
I don't know. Whenever I hear this, I picture full makeup Gene Simmons with his tongue out, screaming his ass off, singing this.
So I have a perspective that lands perfectly in the middle between the two of y'all. I completely agree that I feel like this is kind of like a return to form for Gene, but I also 100% see what you mean, Russ, how... Again, we're recording this in 2022. We have hindsight of even what's come after this to put in. Even as much as we want to block it out of our heads, we know what all comes after this and what's come before. People that have just gotten off the train of hearing Gene sing about logs and fireplaces and no, and thrills in the night and everything else, all of a sudden he's busting out saying, I am the demon of the dark. I am unholy. Well, it does seem a little like, whoa, that's a little bit of a turn and from where we were.
And given where a lot of this is going to go on this record, the lyric is semi-intelligent, is to question, you call us evil. Look in the mirror. That's okay for a hard rock song.
Oh yeah,
this is a good heavy metal song.
I think so. And that's what I was also going to mention. We did this a lot during the 70s. We really didn't do it much during the 80s, but I feel it's also important to mention that during this time in the music world, heavy music was dominating. The hair metal has completely fizzled out. By this point, you had grunge and Metallica and heavy metal really kind of dominating maybe not the airwaves, but at least the ticket sales.
The rock audience.
Exactly.
But, I'm going to discuss that here in a minute.
Well, I just think
to the
that
summary
kind
of it, but
I just a lot of this record.
This was a hard one for me to swallow because of all that had come before it in the previous 10 years. And I had lived through all that, and I have still clear memories of it. So when Gene all of a sudden comes out of left field trying to act like the demon without makeup,
right?
I have a very clear memory of like laughing my ass off at this video when it came out. I was just like, come on, dude.
Maybe if I grow up.
But then again, I was also, I wasn't a teenager anymore. I had already turned the corner. All of this seemed convoluted. It's, I'm like, and it's obviously so in hindsight for me. But we'll talk about that when we get to the summary of the whole album.
But honestly, for me,
Russ, he's got a goatee. He's badass again.
I know,
and he's wearing all leather.
I'm like, this is a guy 5 years ago that was wearing sequined robes and eyeshadow and rouge. It's like, I'm like, where do we get to this? It's like you're trying too hard at this point.
Well, here, I'll annoy you. My last point on this song, to me, this feels like God of Thunder Part 2.
It does.
I think that was the intent. I think it goes too much heavy metal. And that's the thing. I'm like, if this had a looser rock, quote unquote rock style to it, maybe it would have worked better. I feel like that on a lot of this material, but they were going very full bore. We've got to be a quote unquote heavy metal band, and also they've got a standard now, and we've got to adhere to this standard.
And also important to note, first record in a long time that starts with a Gene song.
Yeah. True. Larry Mazer was very much a proponent of bringing Gene back to the forefront.
Yeah.
And that's probably part of the decision process on how that goes. Second song, though, we go from one extreme to the other, and we've got Take It Off.
And it's like, oh, that's found him right where we left him.
And now I'll take the lead on this one real quick and say, outside of critiquing how the song sounds, production, even the music itself, I find it so interesting that this is a Bob Ezrin co-write.
Right.
When all the way back in Destroyer, what did he do? He challenged them to stop writing fuck me songs.
Well, okay.
And now all of a sudden he's back in the fold.
I think there's only one part of this song, and I think it's very obvious, where Bob Ezrin all of a sudden drops in like a bomb in the middle of this.
Oh, the slow part?
Which is the best part of that whole song. That's a whole nother song. And it's like, why is that here? And why is it so much better than the rest of this song? That's Bob Ezrin. It has to be.
I think the subject matter might have been contributed by one Kane Roberts as well.
Now, what did he... I saw the name. I just didn't look it up.
He's the guy from Alice Cooper's band in the 80s that was all jacked up. Oh! That guy.
That motherfucker.
You didn't look it up.
Look it up.
No, I didn't do it.
Wrong record.
That's really weird. Kane Roberts was the muscle guitar player for Alice, and I'm curious that he got brought into this. But then again, we've seen already their willingness to kind of co-write with anybody that's willing to sit at the table with them. I don't know.
I can't think of any Kane Roberts 80s hits by...
Oh, yeah, because we didn't mention Vinnie Vincent was the co-write on the whole.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if he wrote that riff.
I was curious about that, too.
That does sound a little bit like a Vinnie riff.
It does.
He's credited on the album for the guitar intro. I don't know if it's that little fade-in part or if it's the riff itself.
I think it's the riff, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, Unholy was a good song. I just don't think it's too much. It was like trying too hard for me. Take It Off. Take It Off. I think it's a cool riff. I like the phrasing.
I do too.
But the lyrics are goddamn dumb. That whole I'm a tough guy and I'm out on the prowl with that local titty bar line, and it's like
even for Paul.
Damn it, it's dumb for Paul. Yeah, it's like this song. I hate to sound like a broken record, but all these records you see. All this missed potential to do really good, strong, good hooky hard rock, which is what they do so well. And but it's like they got the line, and it's like, but they have their standard, which is way above the line or outside the line, and it's like you don't need to go there.
Because I will say, when I was younger, and not really, because you know how you'll be young, listen to lyrics, know what they're saying, but not fully process it. It's just like they kind of go in one ear and out the other. I remember liking this song a lot as a kid, but it's for the exact same reasons you just said. It's a good riff, it's a fun tempo, and his vocal melody is even cool.
It's
the only bad thing about it is the lyrics.
Paul does the lyrics kind of kill it, and it goes on for way too long. It's almost 5 minutes long.
Yeah, Paul does that a couple times on this record, where there's some great hooky melodies in the verses and pre-choruses, but it's just all
we've
dumb
talked about
songs.
that in previous episodes. It's like they always seem to lose it at the chorus, but and it's got that patented Kiss harmony in it. They've dropped that in, but again, it's like they're wasting it in this trite fucking bullshit take it off.
But Russ, it works for the tour because they'll bring strippers on stage and it's fun and there's boobies.
Look, we're gonna say that.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with boobies. I think everyone
jump ahead.
it's generally considered,
okay. Well,
if we love boobies,
if we are gonna jump ahead a little bit to that, I will also say, being maybe 11, 12, getting that confidential VHS tape and they're
like,
showing, I was like, whoa, this is the greatest thing ever. And being in a rock band must rock. You can get strippers on stage, everything. Over the last few weeks, like getting ready for this and even watching some of like the bootleg YouTube Revenge era stuff, it's so cringy when it happens without the editing. The editing makes it look cool and exciting. Watching just the single cams, it's so cringy. It's so bad. It's so bad.
That's what's so bad about Kiss to me post makeup is so much of their stuff is just cringy and corny, and that's the problem. It's like you're just corny. Tough Love, 2 point. Tough Love. This isn't a good song at all on any level. I listened to this twice trying to go, well, is there something in here I can pull out? Because I'm trying to find something, and there's nothing here. This is just dumb. It's a dumb chorus. It's a song that goes nowhere.
It's forgettable.
I will say this song reminds me of another one that's later on the record that I think is better. So no, I don't like this one as much, and I didn't even back then. Another Bob Ezrin co-write, but also a Bruce Kulick co-write also.
We'll blame Bruce.
Yeah, really. Good job, Bruce.
Way to go, Bruce.
We're never getting him on the show now. And he's so accessible. He's so nice.
He's so nice. We love you, Bruce.
Every time
we love you. We really and truly love you.
I've said nothing but nice things about Bruce.
I don't like Tough Love, Bruce, but we love your guitar play.
This is Tough Love, Bruce. We're just being honest.
He's very proud of this record. He released a video about it today.
I know. It's not a good record. Anyway. Just keep saying 2 point. 2 point.
The cringe keeps going.
Spit.
We get this dry ass vocal from Gene at the very beginning. He's talking about production calls from Ezrin.
Wait.
Peak quality.
Wait. Stop. Can I just say this?
Poetry.
Right out of the front. We have made so many jokes over the last several albums of them being Spinal Tap. And here now they are actually using Spinal Tap lyrics.
Wait, which were the Spinal Tap lyrics?
The bigger the cushion, the sweeter the pushing.
That's right.
And it's like at this point you're just like, God damn it. This isn't even, y'all are laughing. I don't even find this funny because it's so fucking bad.
It's like AC/DC already had the big girl song.
Well, this is sweet lips. Make a man out of me.
This is and let AC/DC be AC/DC.
Yeah.
But it's what the
it's
fuck?
Bad.
And then the Star Spangled Banner right in the middle of it, which is like, what is that
with
supposed to be like? Some sort
bombs.
Of, and I would say that was a Bob Ezrin idea. That just feels like a Bob Ezrin. That's one of the few Bob Ezrinisms in this, and it's an ill-timed, ill-placed point to do it.
Bruce, get on the podcast and tell us what the fuck happened.
This is so fucking stupid. I wanted to smash my goddamn stereo. I'm like, why? Who likes this song and why?
I remember listening to this.
And it's like the delivery, that bigger the cushion, the meaner the butt. Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. And then it doesn't get better after that. I need a whole lot of woman.
Oh, to keep me satisfied.
Those little scat parts.
Oh, yeah, he scats in it.
Yes.
Oh, my God. And you know what? I guarantee you he stole that from fucking Van Halen's
David Lee Roth.
No, from Why Can't This Be Love?
Oh my God, yes.
It's just, everything here just reeks of some bad idea that they stole from somewhere else.
But you know what's weird?
Poorly regurgitated it all over the fucking...
They were proud of this, you know why?
Because it's a duet.
Because they were fucking dumb and didn't know better.
Well, not only that, but that was a good one. Because again, not to jump too far ahead, but during the MTV Unplugged recordings, the full uncut has them playing this song. Like they did it as like it was before Every Time I Look at You, so they're like pulling out the piano and like getting the string section set up, and they're like, we're just gonna mess around with some, and they played like Hard Luck Woman, and then like a second of God of Thunder, and then this.
They play the whole thing.
They play all of
they play a
Spin.
second of God of Thunder, and they play the whole of this.
Yeah, yeah.
She's an acoustic guitar going do 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 do.
Yeah. And Bruce is like looking at them, going like, I can't play this on acoustic. He's like, this is not the song to improv right now.
You know what? We've made the point. We've driven it home. Let's keep it moving.
Yes.
So God Gave Rock and Roll to You now makes an appearance on the album. It was already used in the soundtrack. I guess this is a different mix.
Yeah, a slightly different, but I've listened.
Big deal. So what?
I did the audiophile thing of listening to both versions. They're pretty much the same. But honestly, I dig the song.
I don't know that I've ever. Have either of you heard the original? Because I don't think I have.
I have. I found there's.
May have.
There's a YouTube video.
I'm sure. I'm sure I probably have somewhere, but I just paid no attention.
It's pretty similar. Eric Singer, of course, puts his mark on it, but musically, it's pretty similar.
Well, you know what this song reminds me of? I don't know if we're getting too far ahead with like Kiss in the media in the early 2000s, but there's that VH1 show where Gene Simmons is teaching this group of little kids how to be in a band. I think it was like Gene Simmons Rock School or something like that.
Okay.
And there's this one, and he teaches the band how to play God Gave Rock and Roll to You, or at least shows them the song, and that's like the flagship track for the entire series.
Oh, they seem like they were trying to get a lot of mileage out of this. Here's what I have in my notes. I have it that this version is too bubblegum to be epic, and it's too epic to be bubblegum. That big, sweeping, huge chorus feels very epic, but it's a trite bubblegum. And I'm like, I think if they had moved to try to make more out of it than it was and made an epic, it still probably wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
It would have worked, but if they had pulled back, I don't know.
I'll defend it a little bit because I feel that there's a lot of really redeeming qualities to it. Like, for instance, one of the things I really love is when it breaks down to the single
harmony?
guitar and that dual harmony.
Well, you know who that is. It's not Paul and Gene. It's Paul and Eric Carr.
Yep.
This is Eric Carr's last recorded moment with Kiss.
Yep.
So there's some poignancy to that, knowing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, see,
knowing it.
I feel like I remember hearing that, but no, that wasn't something I remember. But I love that part, and honestly, how it goes back into it with the heavy riff, the boom.
Oh yeah.
And even the little build back up to it. It just, I feel there's a lot of cool, dynamic, redeeming qualities to the song.
It's not terrible, but it's just not.
It's just kind of there.
And I will say, hearing it live, it works live.
Does it?
Yeah, because when I was on the Kiss cruise, the Bruce Kulick band played it, and it hits a certain way live, like because the whole crowd was singing it. They dedicated it to Eric Carr, like all the other stuff, and it was just like, this is fun.
Did he do the corny spoken word outro? Because that's cheesy as fuck.
They did the Alive.
No times can be hard.
Yeah, they did the Alive 3 version.
You know what else can be hard? Listening to this record.
Come on now.
Domino.
It's Gene Simmons trying to be ZZ Top.
Let me tell you my story. I got a man-sized predicament.
Oh, Christ.
It's a big one.
Bullshit.
And it goes like this.
And she can't even vote.
Yeah.
She's not old enough to vote.
That is so... Ooh.
Christine 16 Part 2.
When I saw you coming out of school that you know, this almost works for me. It's so creepy and leering, though.
That's the problem.
It's
the
like
music's
all this
cool.
stuff that would be kind of cool. Like, there was something that was almost kind of endearingly charming about Christine 16 in its own fucked up way.
Well, because
it
was also a guy in his mid-20s singing it.
And it was also, well, that still doesn't make it okay.
You know what I mean?
But it's also, Christine 16 is a great pop song.
Yeah.
It really is. This is not a great pop song. This is just a sneering fucking heavy metal. I'm tough.
Yeah.
Dig me, I'm a macho motherfucker.
Look at me in my goatee and my sunglasses.
The way the bitch euphemism.
Yeah.
It works so well for one reason or another. I can't define it. It's an intangible, but in 100,000 years, it works. And this, it just it's a desperate attempt to sound hip and with it.
Over. Yeah. I forget my name.
You're not hip and with it. You're just old and incompetent, and it's dumb.
I just like how he says every damn time it's the same dang thing.
Is that what he says?
Yes. He says every damn time I go through that door, it's the same dang thing. He does say damn twice.
All of it's just dumb. I mean, it's just fucking dumb. And it's hard. This is the most cringeworthy moment probably on this record.
Fucking cringy.
Interesting music video though. No need to really get into the production of all of these with directors and stuff, but interesting that because I have a feeling you've probably never watched the music video for this.
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah,
it's not remarkable by any means.
There's one kind of interesting note to it. So it shows Gene. Literally, the narrative is the band is practicing playing the song, and Gene is just cruising through what looks like LA to get drive-through fast food.
Yes.
That's literally all that happens.
I don't even think there's a girl in the video.
No, there is. You want to talk about the weird leering part? Motherfucker stops to get gas. He hops out in his big, long black trench coat, leather trench coat he's wearing for the thing. He's so pumping gas, and like this traditional early 90s glamour model comes out with the big, blonde, poofy hair with the long dress on, and he like looks at her, smiles, and like tips his sunglasses.
Well, of course he's wearing sunglasses because he's so damn rock and roll. At night. Because he's so damn rock and roll.
And she gives him the most like, you are a creeper look, and just like beeline. So at least they were. But the interesting note on it is, so Gene is not part of any of the music scenes at all. During the solo, you see Paul playing bass. Yes.
Really weird.
There is certain moments in the video where you see Paul Stanley playing bass. So I just thought that was an interesting tidbit.
I think there's potential for this to be a good song.
Yeah,
it's not. It's just
some of the lyrics.
It's just the lyrics are just such a put off. It could have been something better, and I guess if there weren't so much just dundering stupidity in this,
dundering stupidity,
it could be a good song. It's trying to be a good song.
My next band name.
Love lots of money, loves to hurt so good.
I mean, it would have been okay. It's just hard for me to swallow, especially at this point when everything is a lot more, a reflection of an honest self as opposed to a convoluted pose, which is what Kiss does so well, but they have nothing to pose behind, whereas the original band did, and it had substance. This has no substance.
It's time to flip the tape.
2 point. Heart of Chrome. My notes here, look, I'm just going to say this and y'all can say whatever you want. My notes say, trying to formulate my opinion and have already forgotten the song. That's all I got. I have no memory of this song now at all.
This one I feel is kind of like Tough Love, but I like Heart of Chrome a lot better. I think it's got a cool chorus, how it's got like the chanty background thing while Paul's doing kind of his stage rap. The sugar, I'm gonna stick it. Like that kind of thing. But you've got the
what? He's gonna what?
Stick it in your Heart of Chrome.
I like the verses and the pre-choruses, but that's about it. I didn't like I feel like there's too much going on in the chorus.
Really? So I think the chorus is cool.
This is another Vinnie Vincent co-write, but there's also a Bob Ezrin in here somewhere, but I don't hear
Bob Ezrin is that slow drony part, I bet. That that and the build up to it leading into the da-da-da-da. I think that's an Ezrinism.
Yeah.
But no, I think out of the two, if I had to go with the I'm Paul Stanley and I'm Tough songs, between Tough Love and Heart of Chrome, I think Heart of Chrome is way better. Cooler solo, better chorus.
I didn't write anything negative about it other than I just had forgotten it. So obviously I felt it was better than the other one. What, you got any opinion on this?
I mean, like I said, I like the verses. I think the chorus is too busy. But other than that, the music's it's fine.
The one negative I'll give it again is stupid lyrics.
And if there's I don't really like any of the Paul songs on this album, at all, except for maybe this one.
Well, it seems like that's one of the weird dichotomies that are at play on this record. We'll get to that. Let's get through it, and then we'll talk about that, because there's a Paul side and a Gene side, and they're not coinciding here. So, Thou Shalt Not. Did I miss anything? No, nope. Thou Shalt Not. This is a co-write with someone named Jesse Damon, who I guess was the singer in the band Silent Rage, who was on Gene Simmons' record label.
Okay.
So he's throwing this guy a bone.
Yeah.
So this song is fine, but you get to the chorus and he says, "Thou shalt not." And I'm sitting there going, "Thou shalt not what?" He doesn't say.
I've got the same thing.
Okay.
I got the same thing. Verse part's okay. Chorus sucks.
Well, so to answer Cap's question, "Thou shalt not," I feel like that is kind of just a reflection of the rest of the lyrics. So it's the rest of the lyrics, he's telling a narrative. So if he's saying "thou shalt not," he's just like, don't do what you're doing.
Look, yeah, well, he's not that clever. He's not that clever.
I think he is.
You know what?
I think he is.
Thou shalt not leer at teenage girls that aren't old enough to vote and are still in school. You know what? Thou shalt not, really? Thou shalt not make shitty records, but they're going to anyway.
That being said, this is probably my second favorite track on this album.
It is a cool song.
This reminded me of a Lick It Up era kind of song, and it's not a Vinny co-write, which is,
honestly, it reminded me of like Creatures, maybe.
I think it was more his vocal delivery that kind of gave that to me. I don't know why. I can't remember it now. Made no impression on me.
His delivery on this and Unholy have that, that's classic Gene Simmons demon kind of approach to it, where he was just kind of, more sneery and, whatever, and with the rest of the records that followed up in between.
Well, and I like this song too because it has a cool stomp to it. Like throughout the whole thing, you've got like this thumping kick drum the entire time, and it never really lets up. And I think that's kind of a cool vibe for a Gene song.
And I'm a sucker for those slidey guitar riffs, those
yeah, exactly. It's an awesome little riff, and I think for even stuff like Tomorrow and Tonight, when this throwing out lines like your mamas and your teachers, they never did or listening to your preachers ain't done nobody good. I feel it's kind of an interesting line to kind of toe for a Kiss song to mention religion much at all. So I think this is kind of a cool little line because it's almost referring back to the unholy aspect of you're trying to point fingers at me, but look at you.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of it.
Yeah,
but it's okay.
No, you still don't like it. We get it.
I've written it down as it being okay. I don't, honestly, I can't remember it at all while we're sitting here talking about it.
Now I'm curious, have we hit your favorite song yet? Because you teased it last episode.
No.
Okay.
Did I?
You teased and said, we'll find out what my favorite song on this record is next, or something like that. So I was wondering if we hit your favorite yet.
Did I tell you what it was?
No, you gave us no hints.
Nope.
We tried to guess.
Okay. Well, let's look at this next one. Every time I look at you. And I want to get y'all's opinions first, and then I'll give mine.
It feels like they tried to do Beth 2 with Bob Ezrin on this piece with a slow acoustic ballad.
I had not considered that. That's a good observation, though.
That is good. I like that.
Who plays lead guitar on it?
It's not anybody from the band. It's somebody different, and I can't think of the name right now.
Welcome back to the fold, Dick Wagner.
Dick Wagner, that's right.
Oh, shit.
Who is longtime collaborator with Bob Ezrin. And of course we talked about he's probably on Destroyer more than we even realize. I think.
And now I feel like you're either going to love it or hate it, so I might as well just go with it. I genuinely like the song, like a whole lot. And I feel like it kind of even harkens back to Hold Me, Touch Me from Paul's solo record. Like,
that's what I thought too.
But
I think... Go ahead.
But then again, a lot of people lump it in with that song saying, oh, it's that silly bubblegum pop stuff, that, mushy stuff that Paul will write. But honestly, I think he's good at it.
He's good at it.
And this song sings, especially on Unplugged. I know we're going to get there, but it's really good there.
It's the vocal on this version of it. I don't know. It feels like after the solo, before it, where it kind of picks up and before it drops off on the last chorus. I feel like that's how he should have sang it like the whole time.
Well, I think it's important to leave that dynamic. That way, that moment actually stood out to.
That's my favorite part of the whole song.
Oh, I agree. It's great.
Well, do you want my opinion?
Yeah.
You really want my opinion? This is the best song on the album.
Okay, I was wondering.
This is really, really good. It's exceptionally good. It's better than Hold Me, Touch Me. I don't know where this comes from or how he's able to shit this one out. It's a great ballad. Accounts, and not only is it better than Hold Me, Touch Me, this is better than any of the, requisite. Every album had its requisite, especially in this era, power ballad.
Yeah.
This beats all the hair metal power ballads out of the water. This is a really good song. This could have been a good song for anybody.
I was going to say, if they had pitched this song to like every 80s pop singer, this would have been like a number one.
Anyone. I mean, it's abnormal in its maturity on this record.
And credit to Paul. From all accounts, this sounds like a primarily Paul song with some Ezrin isms. Yeah. Because during the research of this, there's actually a lot of really cool demos for these songs out, and there's like just a tape recorder version of Paul strumming that, and you can tell it's probably just like in his living room or something. And he's just kind of humming a melody. Yeah, and he just had the riff.
Well, I can't believe this didn't get much traction as a single. I can't see how this wasn't a hit.
No, this was like,
to me, this should have been a hit for anybody.
And Paul has a beard in the video.
Does he?
Yeah.
Where he's like all like, where he's got the shadow.
It's about, the amount of beard that Paul will have.
And whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that this is, I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I would go to on the regular. But especially compared to the rest of this album, I mean, this thing comes out of left field just as strongly as Unholy does out of the front. That's what I'm saying. It's way mature compared to everything else on this record. I'm not saying it's a mature ballad. Maybe it is. It just feels that way in light of all the other trite, awful, dumb shit that they put on this.
All the chest beating shit.
Like I said, I can't see. This is a better song than Forever.
Oh, I've always thought that.
I don't understand how Forever was a hit and this wasn't, because this is a million times better.
I've always thought that.
This is better than I Still Love You. And a lot of people are going to raise their eyes on that. But I totally think this is a better song.
Studio versions,
it's a different kind of song.
But studio to studio, yes, I agree.
I think this is just a better song. But let's keep it moving here. Paralyzed. I like the vocal phrasing, but I don't like the riff, if that makes any sense.
It's that D-tune. It's that D-tune, like a whole tone thing.
Wait, there's a chugginess to it.
My notes say I think it could have been served with a full chord pattern underneath. Does that make sense? I don't know how to speak muso, but if it had like instead of just that slinky riff, I don't think that works for this song. And I think it would have worked much better, because otherwise I think it's a decent song.
Yeah. It's kind of like what is it on the first side that's in that same ballpark, where it's like Tough Love, where it's like there, but I can't sing it out loud right now.
It's better than Tough Love, in my opinion.
And even the chorus is pretty cool, how they just kind of let the note ring, and it's the da da da.
Well, here's my question: do you think this was Paralyzed was like trying to play off of Parasite? With a riff and all the riff pattern and everything.
I mean, it's similar.
Like that to me feels a little bit of a stretch.
Do you think?
I'm
just curious what y'all thought. I'm like, I don't think that it. I'm wondering if it drew its inspiration there and then became this song.
See, I kind of after the second or third listen to this record, I kind of went into it with the lens of like, all right, what if they were still the Makeup Band putting out these songs, or we want to get to that?
I can't see the Makeup Band getting here. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. I can't see the timeline. I don't see how the Makeup Band would have gotten to this point. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, but I'll explain that more.
Counterpoint.
I can see there's while we're sitting here talking, Alex is over here with the gears and just like spinning in his brain. I can see him. He's like got this faraway look. I'm not saying the direct thing. I'm saying
no.
I can see like, but
I can
my
see
point
it. I can see
it. If that were in fact true, it's interesting that if it were true, it's like they are now being influenced by themselves. That's always a good place to be. Mm-hmm. It's a healthy place to be, because it shows how strong you were at another point. I don't think this is near the song, of course, Parasite is. I mean, not even close.
I will say one of the downsides to this is just the random drum breakdown with the voices.
Well, I have here in notes, apparently there was an effort made to include a rap in the middle. Like they were going to bring in a rapper, some sort of signed noted rapper. I don't know who.
Yep, and it was going to be a much longer segment, and Gene recorded a lot more of his... and that part is on YouTube. So basically, the track that the rapper was going to sing to is on YouTube, but of course, since he was never commissioned, that part's never out.
All things to all people, right?
It'd have been Ice-T or some shit like that.
Well,
1992.
I think I could have lived with it if it had been Ice-T.
Yeah. I mean, he was popping up on Motorhead records and shit like that.
I could live with that. I don't know, but who knows?
I don't even know early 90s rap well enough to throw out even a funny reference.
I'm not a rap fan, but I like Ice-T okay. I wouldn't, again, it's not my go-to, but I'm like, if I were to be like, okay, you got to sit here and listen to it, pick one. I'd be like, okay, well,
6 in the morning.
Early Ice-T. Anyway, I just wanna. Technically, the last song on the album.
I just want to skip this fucking song.
You know what?
I just want to shove ice picks in my ears because goddamn, this is embarrassing.
It's awful.
Summertime Blues rewrite.
It's Summertime Blues. That's exactly what it is.
Come on.
Oh, look,
this is not a lyrical genius.
No.
Fuck
no.
That's what I was about to say.
No.
Look, I cannot ignore. I'm gonna set the night on fire, shooting like a Roman candle. I can't ignore that.
But it's
shit.
Summertime Blues.
Any of this, it's just dumb.
But the music is.
I just want to I just want to. Oh, get it?
Forget you,
guys. We're clever.
So clever. Christ! No. I mean, this is so embarrassing.
Okay, but look, we've talked about Kiss before being clever.
This is not.
This is
clever.
not at all.
I
Lifting melodies like blatantly too.
I don't know. Out of all the Paul songs, aside from Every Time I Look at You, like when it comes to like rocker songs, out of Paul's rockers, I think this is his best rocker.
There's so much wrong with it.
I think it's better than Take It Off.
It's got the harmony part in it. That's
good.
The
chorus
is
great.
It's a waste. Why did you put this harmony in here when it could have been something
cool? Little bit at the near the end where they do the little breakdown harmony. When you said that, it reminded me.
There's your Bob Ezrin part. The little
probably.
Yep.
Well, he's not credited on here, so it's this is a correct.
Well, that's a Vincent then. That's a Vinnie Vincent.
I mean, I don't know.
Somebody was listening to the Who or Blue Cheer that day.
I think
didn't
it's
like
a cool
this when
song.
it was a single. That's how I knew this song to begin with. I don't like it now.
I just remember putting this on going like, oh yeah, this fucking song.
Okay, I will say, Inside Baseball, so Cap and I have a band called The Fill-Ins, and one of our music videos, Lock and Load, is a completely, and it's on YouTube, it's a complete black and white background video, and it's because I saw that video as a kid and went, that looks really cool. A black and white kind of video with the band in all black and in all white.
They had already been done.
So what? It's the first time I saw it.
Okay, I understand.
That's what I'm saying.
Fair.
So it doesn't matter what came before it.
But
that was my first experience seeing a video like that.
I'm sorry that you like this song.
Yeah. I got nothing to.
I'll say it went all the way to the music video inspire one of ours.
But man, I have cut farts that are more compelling than this.
I might have two.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one.
Okay. So, and this album closes out with something called Car Jam 1981.
This is
all right.
A demo, right?
I had never heard this before. It became a song called Breakout with Ace. I've heard that. I have no memory of it. We've not talked about any of their any of the X members solo stuff. I don't know if we'll ever go there. I don't see any need to. But at the end, it's ultimately this is a drum solo. And listening to this for the first time, I had never heard this before. I thought, how sad is it that this drum solo brings to mind Peter Criss's Kiss Alive drum solo? That's all I could hear in this. And it doesn't have, and it's so, and it might just be because of the source recording, everyone talks about how forceful and how powerful of a drummer he was. This sounds like Peter Criss, who was not a forceful, powerful drummer, which is not an insult. A lot of my favorite drummers are not heavy hitting drummers. I've talked about that. Neil Smith, Keith Moon,
jazzy drummers,
Tommy Ramone, who's not jazzy, but they weren't heavy. A lot of those early drummers weren't like that. Ringo Starr, Charlie Watts, all great drummers in their own respects. Eric Carr had that thundering drum sound. They always worked hard to capture it, and here the last thing he gets as a tribute is not sound like that at all.
So I actually have some really interesting tidbits on this song, because of all songs, when I was kind of really getting into my Kiss nerdom in my teens, this song always captivated me. And the reason being is for exactly what what Russ mentioned earlier, was that this song eventually turned into the song Breakout. So I remember hearing this riff and going, wait a minute, I know this song. And that triggered this is confusing for me. Why is it an Eric Carr thing, but I know this as an Ace Frehley 80s thing? This is confusing. So what this actually, do you have much on this song in your notes?
No, that's all I have.
This song, this was part of the Elder recording sessions, the Ace in the Hole sessions, where they had like 1 or 2 days at Ace's studio during the Elder. This was recorded during that time, and it was recorded during the same sessions as Escape from the Island.
Okay.
This was supposed to be a full song.
Right.
It eventually just did not turn into. So when they decided to put this on the record, they were going through all their old tapes, because at this point, they were even semi-discussing doing that Kiss box set and releasing a bunch of demos. Like, that was kind of something semi-circulating as an idea. So they were kind of going through their stuff. They found the demo track. They stripped Ace's guitar off.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce re-recorded the guitar riff.
I read that too.
And the drums that are on there is very much cut. It's been repositioned. Came from a very long tape, and it was trimmed and cut down. So I found that interesting that you mentioned that it kind of had a Peter Criss Alive vibe. Well, they're literally deciding when he's going to do certain beats and when they're going to cut the tape and organize it. So I never thought about that before. I wonder if that was intentional.
I don't know.
If he did just enough beats to kind of assimilate something that would be reminiscent of the drum solo on Alive.
Well, I guess they had to get into the vaults, and they wanted to include something as a tribute to Eric. And
yeah,
it sounds okay for what it is.
This whole album, again, it's Bob Ezrin. He has 6 co-writes. And like I say, it doesn't sound like a Bob Ezrin record. It doesn't have any of the bombs, the bells, the bacchanalia, the bravado of
it's very stripped down.
And I wonder how actively involved maybe he was in this, if it wasn't much like The Elder, where they're basically left to their own devices, self-produced. He comes in and supervises certain things and goes, oh yeah, well, let me hear what you did today, playback, okay, check, okay. That's basically a producer now. You know, a guy like Rick Rubin, he's not actually in the studio anymore. He comes in and hears playback and then approves it.
Yeah, because he's got his engineers and his sound techs. So they're not even stuff.
I don't, and what you're paying for is the name.
Yep.
Yeah. Which kind of
and I think
the shit out of me.
And I think that's what Kiss wanted here, was a name. I just have a hard time thinking that he's sitting in the studio actually doing this. I think you can see where his hand comes in, like with the orchestration on Every Time I Look at You, stuff like he might have had.
But then I throw a devil's advocate question at that.
Go ahead.
We've got, who did you say was on Every Time I Look at You?
Dick Wagner.
Dick Wagner. That's what
so you've got Dick on there, though. So it feels like if Bob was being kind of hands off and a little bit more just kind of in the background, he wouldn't have pulled Dick in to do that. But to me, that kind of signifies him being a little bit more at the helm.
Yeah, maybe, but I could have come back with playback and going, I don't like that solo. And if they didn't have Wagner on it, they wouldn't have had Dick. Well, I'll be here all night. So I just, like I said, I think this is just a corny sophomoric record. I don't think this is a return to form. I think this is just a return to what they think their fans want, and maybe to a degree they're right. I can remember. I just keep thinking of Saturday Night Live. There was 2 skits I keep thinking of while I was listening to this. One is they had back in the 70s, Bill Murray and Gilda Radner played these 2 kids, the Nerds, and I think they were there's a skit where they try to make a band and they were going to call their record Trying Desperately to Be Liked. And the other thing I could think of was the Joe Piscopo was Frank Sinatra, where he's like, I want to make a record that the young people will enjoy. That's why I'm calling this one Frank Sings Songs the Young People Will Enjoy. Yes. And that's all I can see them as, like, we got to do songs the young people will enjoy. Gene Simmons
sings the songs young people
that's what it feels like to me. It's like, and here they're copying the styles that's now popular of groups like Skid Row, and
I hear a little White Zombie.
Molly Cruz adopted that LA Street look, and have Guns N' Roses. These are all really big bands at that moment.
Yeah,
and they're again they're they're a year, 2 years behind the time playing catch up, and they're not sure of who they are or who they should be. So they've come up with this convoluted street image, and it's the LA street image. It's not New York, and not that they were ever from the streets of New York anyway. Kiss still doesn't know how to be Kiss. So now they've got this idea, and this works for their fans because their fans are stupid enough to buy it. Now I'm raising my hand, because it's such an obvious, pretentious pose. How they got anyone to purchase into it is actually kind of impressive. But as P.T. Barnum himself said, a sucker is born every minute, and with God as my witness, I am that sucker, because I've kept up with it.
And now I will argue the point. I don't agree that this is a return to form for Kiss.
Yeah, I don't.
And the reason I say that is this is a new Kiss. This is the third version of Kiss.
Yet another reinvention.
Because we had our original makeup, and then we had our 80s non-makeup, and now we have our 90s non-makeup. So, to me, this is the third era of Kiss.
Yeah. That goes to the point I was going to make earlier. That would makeup Kiss have reached this point in their evolution. I had this debate with a friend of mine recently about this. I'm like, if you follow their evolution up through Dynasty and Unmasked, it's kind of a straight line. They kind of veer a little bit at Dynasty.
Yeah.
But I think they're staying true to who they are as individuals and what they are reflecting of who they are and what they want to do. Whether you like it or not, it's irrelevant. This is the honest, those are still honest versions of Kiss. And it's only after those records fail to be successful, or particularly Unmasked, that you start seeing this constant second guessing and this pose that they're going, okay, now we've got to be, well, that obviously, so this doesn't feel genuine to me at all. Even at the time it didn't. But it's more so obvious now looking back. It's not a reflection of who they are and what they want to do. Instead, they're doing what they think is expected of them. That's a complete lack of integrity to me. That is what I call selling out. It's not a question of how successful you are. It's what you're willing to sacrifice in pursuit of success. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with success. I only have a problem with manufactured success. Does that make sense?
Yes,
it does.
So this is a complete fucking sellout to me. This is a bullshit record full of bullshit ideas by guys that know better and have no need to do this.
Real quick, I will say, I agree with this, but that argument is going to be better served in a couple episodes.
Okay.
Because I feel that I have kind of a mental thought with this being the third era of Kiss and them going down a specific path. This was the first step.
I think I know what you're going to go to with this, and I don't disagree. If I think what I think what you think, what you think, I think you're.
I think this was going to be a much more genuine effort than the album that never got released.
No. Yeah.
Continuing down the path.
I think it's exactly the same.
I honestly feel that record is a lot more contrived and hard to try hard.
Let's get there when we get there, but I understand what you mean.
Everything you just described there, I would lump to the next record a lot more.
This record is released on May 19th, 1992, correct?
Yep. Yes.
And so
after...
today is May 19th, 2022. So we are recording this on the 30th anniversary, as we said, which is really
to the
weird.
Day. I know, it's so odd.
It peaks. So weird. It peaks on the Billboard charts at a fairly impressive number 6 on June 6th.
I was waiting for another 6.
Which is the 6th day of the 6th month, and number 6. 666.
Oh man,
that's unholy. It's certified gold the last week of July, at which point the album had already sunk to the lower end of the Hot 100.
Now, how many units did it sell?
It did not. It's. It
went gold, right?
It went gold, but it has not gone platinum. That number is actually officially available now because this is, I think, the first album that was released under the SoundScan era where they could actually accurately keep a count of sales figures. So this album is not a platinum record, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to learn that because a lot of people think this was like a big comeback for them. This was not a hit record.
Did it not sell more than Hot in the Shade?
I don't know.
Okay, I was gonna say I feel like that they did make mention that this was at least the first record that at least kind of moved a few more copies.
Probably.
Like it still wasn't a major hit, but it was like sign of possible tides changing.
Larry Mazer insists that the Gene song be the lead single. First thing we talked about that.
Yeah, Unholy.
He's very big about we got to push some Gene. We've had too much Pretty Boy Paul. We need Gene. But he wanted Domino as the second single.
Yes.
And got some pushback from Paul on that. And so we got I Just Wanna and said, I don't think that Gene should get all of the spotlight when I've been working so hard to keep this band.
I mean, he's got a point.
He does have a point, but you know what? He's still wrong. Larry Mazer would have been right. And I think, who's to say what the trajectory would have been had they released Domino? Because I don't know.
Well, Domino did get released
as a third single.
Later. Yeah, he had to. I guess ping pong them.
Yeah.
He makes this idea. He makes this idea about doing some sort of promotional push by putting them on a club tour.
Mm-hmm.
So in May of that same month, they do. Well, actually, it started in April. Okay, they do 13 dates. And they're all in clubs or small theaters anyway. I don't see how this was a good idea. I kind of get it. It's supposed to be a very special see Kiss in a club.
I think they were doing that and like record store signings
and to me,
before the
I'm
stadium
like,
tour.
This would signify to promoters maybe that they are now club level. I don't know.
That was always the impression I got, was like they had to kind of do that to build it back up for a minute.
Although, have you watched some of the footage of these club shows?
They're not great.
I mean, the band's ripping in these in some of this footage, though.
I don't, I have a real problem with this lineup playing classic Kiss material.
I've always had a problem.
We'll get to that on the next episode.
Yeah. They head to Europe in mid-May using a scaled-back version of the Hot in the Shade tour with the Sphinx.
Mm-hmm. But they use the instead of the Sphinx, they use the Statue of Liberty as their centerpiece.
Yeah, not for that. That's for the full U.S. tour.
Okay.
We're talking. Yeah, this was the smaller clothes, and I think the downsize was. I think it was everything but the head.
They had the head. They had the
face.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're still playing fairly small venues on this.
Yeah.
All of this is allegedly for quote unquote promotion.
Mm-hmm.
But for promotion, their set list only includes 5 non-makeup era songs, which, I guess it's a third of the set.
Yeah.
They're playing 15, 16 songs, I imagine.
Right.
I should have counted it, didn't I? Just counted the songs that were. And only 2 are from the new album.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I don't know. But that's still a sizable amount compared to the tours they had done previous. They're obviously leaning back towards the classic era stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. They wait another, as with Hot in the Shade, it's like they're hurry up and wait. Do we have any kind of pull to be able to do a tour? Somehow they do, but it takes a full 4 months after the release of the album, by which point that album is no longer even charting when they start this tour.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense to me.
Which I think will be a great part to kind of pick up for the next episode as we talk about Alive 3.
Which there's a lot to that, yeah. So I guess we will do that on the very next episode of No Time to Turn. So hopefully you will join us. And so for Cap and for Alex, I'm Russ, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Please insert another coin by supporting the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/somethinggoodnetwork.